You know how some people can feel tension the second they enter the room? Before anyone even says anything, before there's even a problem to name, they can sense it. And then they carry it. And then they quietly start to adjust themselves so it doesn't grow. And most of the time, this gets labeled as being intuitive or empathetic, or some will call it emotionally aware. But very few people ask what that constant harmonizing is actually costing. That is the uncomfortable part. Because the behaviors you see as being considerate, maybe lowering your voice, smoothing interactions, making sure everybody feels okay. See, you didn't come up with those on your own. This is something that you actually learned at a very young age. Somewhere early on in your home, you realized that tension didn't stay contained, that mood spread, and that someone had to manage the emotional temperature. And eventually, that someone became you. So your body learned to scan and to adjust and to settle things before anything could potentially escalate. And now those instincts also show up in your parenting. So you notice everyone's feelings before your own, and then you soften yourself to keep things calm. You absorb discomfort so no one has to feel anything. But the thing is, you probably tell yourself that you're creating peace. But here's what's actually happening. Your child, from a distance, is learning what emotional harmony looks like in your home. They watch how quickly you adapt, how often you prioritize smoothness over honesty, how tension gets diffused instead of addressed. And to them, this all becomes normal. Normal way of living. And then what happens is they start learning to read the room instead of listening to themselves. They learn to adjust instead of express. They learn that keeping things pleasant matters more than being real. So they harmonize too. They stay agreeable. They hold back opinions. They manage their feelings quietly so no one gets uncomfortable. And not because you asked them to, but because they're inheriting the same exact strategy that you once did when you were a child. And you aren't necessarily doing anything wrong. I mean, this isn't a flaw. It's a finely tuned survival skill that once helped you stay connected in an environment where honesty felt risky. However, it is now your responsibility because you're the one carrying it. And if this stays on autopilot, it won't stop here. Your child will continue growing up believing things like peace matters more than truth, or my feelings should be adjusted to the room, or connection requires being agreeable. See, you can't teach your child emotional wholeness while constantly managing everyone else's comfort. You can't. You can't raise someone who trusts their inner world if yours is always adapting outward. But remember, anything learned from survival can be completely relearned in safety. And when you allow small moments of tension, and when you let honesty exist without trying to smooth things over, and when you stay present instead of harmonizing the room, your child actually gets the chance to learn something new. That relationships can hold truth, that emotions don't need to be managed to be safe, and that they don't have to disappear to belong. And that is how your family can shift its current dynamic, not by creating more harmony, but rather by allowing authenticity. Authenticity, where harmony used to cost you yourself.